All right, what's up everyone? So today we're gonna be talking about vocal comping inside of Studio One. I'm actually gonna give you a live demo of comping a section of a song so you can see how it's done. And hopefully after you see the demo, you'll have a better understanding of the comping system and the things you need to watch out for when you apply comping to your own vocal productions. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a demo of a piece of the song that I've already comped, and then we're gonna jump into the uncomp section so you can see it in real time. So let's play the song.
And it's deep inside of me. Rust steel is formed by fire, and the earth will shake its cold.
Okay, so this is a piece of the melody line of a song that's called The One that I have been sketching out and will hopefully release soon. And what is happening is that I had just recorded the vocals and I started comping the main melody line. The vocal itself doesn't have anything on it in terms of effects outside of this one plugin called Waves CLA, which is kind of just for me, just a placeholder to get a vocal chain until I get to the mixing phase. It's nice to have something like at least some type of effects for me when I'm comping. I don't like listening to a dry vocal. If you want to hear what the dry vocal sounds like, it sounds like this.
And it's deep inside of me. Rust steel is formed by fire, and the earth will shake its cold.
It sounds fine, but it's just, for me, it's just easier to comp with some imitation of what it's going to sound like in the final mix. Okay, so now you'll notice I have all of these layers underneath this section, and if you're new to Studio One or you're new to comping, this may look foreign to you. But let me explain to you the layer and comping system, and then we'll jump into the demo. So the way that comping works inside of Studio One, it's based on this notion of layers. Each audio track can have multiple layers. And if you already have layers on your track, you can right click on the track and click expand layers. And of course, if I click this now, when it's expanded, they go away. So what happened was I recorded a bunch of audio takes and I added them to layers. And the way that you do this to make sure that you have your vocal takes that you're going to be able to comp is before you record, the thing you want to do is go down to this record button here and make sure that takes to layers is selected. So what happens is when you have this selected, any parts of the audio that you record over a section of time will actually drop into layers. Now, hopefully that makes sense when I say it, but if not, let's give you a live demo. So I'm just going to create a new audio track here and I'm going to show you what it looks like from a brand new track. So let's say this is example recording. Example recording, we're going to set it to my mic here. We're going to turn on recording. I'm going to turn monitoring off so it just doesn't affect the audio coming through the mic for this video. And we're going to start recording. Remember, takes for layers is currently on. All right, so. Okay, so this is an example that I'm using to show you what recording looks like in preparation for comping vocals. And this is going to be the first take, which will turn into a layer, and we will add another layer as well. Okay, so there's the first take, which is turned into a layer. Now you'll see that when I right click on the audio track, I can expand the layers and you'll see it there. So let me close this here. All right, so this is take number 2, and this will also go to the layer because I have the settings set inside of the record panel, and I will be able to comp these two takes together. All right, so let's expand the layers, and now we have two vocals, so let's zoom in here. And you're gonna hear the latest take that I just recorded first, so that's the one that's gonna be highlighted. All right, so this is take number 2, and this will also go to the layer because I have the settings set inside of the record panel, and I will be able to comp these two takes together. Okay, so now let's listen to the first take I did. What recording looks like in preparation for comping vocals. And this is going to be the first take, which will turn into a layer, and we will add another layer as well. All right, so about this interface, remember you right click to expand to get the layers to open. You have the layers underneath. You can rename the layers. You could say, okay, this was first. This was second. There's this button right here, which is the activate layer button. What this does is promote the entire layer to the top here. So like say I wanted the second one, I wanted the whole thing to come up. I can just hit that button, and now this is the, all right, so the sort of active layer. And this will also now. Okay, so this is an example that I'm using to show you what recording looks like in preparation. But you know, if you're going to comp a vocal, more than likely you want to take individual pieces of each one and splice together a new audio file. So the way that you do that is with this range tool here. You should be able to do this. And what you do is you simply just draw over the pieces that you want. So I'm going to take a little bit from both tracks here, just kind of arbitrarily. I'm not really concerned with how this comes together. Okay, so this is an example that I'm also going to show you what recording settings set in preparation for comping vocals. One thing I love about the Studio One workflow is that, you know, as soon as you select, it promotes it. So it's just super fast to come in here and comp something. So let's apply this to an actual track. I think it's much more useful to see this in context. Okay, so let's jump into a demo of comping in a real scenario. So the second verse of the song I have not touched yet. So this will be a real live comp, like kind of a live look over my shoulder as I work on this section of the song. So the first thing I like to do is listen to each track and get a sense of what's good and bad about each take. Sometimes there's like clearly better take than the rest. And I may notate and say like, okay, that's the good take. And I'll kind of use the most of the parts from that and like pull in words or phrases that are a little bit off from the other takes. But sometimes, you know, there's not a clearly better take. And I kind of mix and match from all the layers. So let's get started. One thing you have to decide is like, are you going to comp soloed or are you going to comp with the rest of the track? My personal preference is actually to have the music on whenever I can because it just feels more musical and in context. And frankly, it's just way less boring to comp when the music's playing. But I will say there is a huge caveat in that, of course, when you solo, you can hear so much more detail, especially the detail of the transitions of your comp. And if you're ever working on an intricate piece and you're doing like detailed comps, and just as a general practice, I would always use solo pretty frequently. So that's something I hopefully will highlight for you as we go through this section. And the other thing is, like I mentioned before, like having a little bit of effects or a vocal chain on your track can be helpful too. I wouldn't overdo this, especially like, you know, if you start tuning vocals and all this stuff. You could comp with that stuff on, but I just generally find just having a little bit helps. But don't overdo it. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, usually the last take that you did is always going to be the one highlighted. So in this case, I have this last layer of about 5.5 vocals that I did for this section. So let's give it a listen. I'm going to start from the first one.
If you feel like I do, I'm living for the wonder. Go read it off the wall.
The first take, for me, always feels a little strained, and I can kind of hear that in this first take as well. Let's go on and listen to the other takes and see how they came out.
If you feel like I do, I'm living for the wonder. Go read it off the wall.
Again, another kind of strained take. I'm not a huge fan of it. Let's keep going.
If you feel like I do, I'm living for the wonder. Go read it off the wall.
So a better take. There's a couple of moments in here, especially here, the feel and that I'm not happy with. Let's see if we can comp something reasonable from these 5 takes. Let's keep going.
If you feel like I do,
would say it's like one of these last 3 takes is probably the best. So once I do my initial listen through of the track, I will then go into more phrase by phrase comping, and then I narrow it down to word by word. So let me show you this general process. So we have this kind of vocal melody line, which I would consider one whole line of the melody. Now that I've listened to it, I have a sense of like what are the good takes for this one, and I would say it's these last 3. So I'm not going to start now. I'm going to start honing in phrase by phrase. I'm going to take sections of probably these last 3 takes, and then we're going to isolate it down to individual words that are problems and try to fix those however we can. Okay, so I'm going to try to decide between these takes what is the best starting phrase here. So let's get into it. So I'd like to zoom in here, make it a little bit bigger. Let's start with this third one. So remember, you just take the range tool here and you just drag over the one you want.
If you feel like I do.
Now, a little pro tip, once you make one selection like this, you don't have to come down here and drag the one below it. I used to do that for years until I found out all you have to actually do is just double click on the layer below it, and Studio One is smart enough to make the range selection for you. So that is an amazing feature. You can literally just go in here and comp all your different vocals. Another thing I would mention that I don't actually use all that much, but you can use this. There is a way to listen to the comp vocal, like with the listen tool here. So I could come over here.
If you feel like I do, if you feel like I do, if you feel
like, personally, I don't use it that much just because I just play the track again. Like,
if you feel.
but if your workflow is better with this listen tool, by all means use it. I'm going to be using the range tool. So I will just double click on a track and play it like that. Just my preference, so I don't have to switch over to the listen tool. But I wanted to make sure that's clear that you can use that as well. Okay, so you just double take through the tracks.
If you feel like I do, 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 if you feel like I do.
So listen now. I'm just for a second. I'm gonna listen in solo.
If you feel like I do, 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 if you feel.
So the couple things that I'm watching out for is things that I can't fix with editing. So things like pitch, I can always fix a little bit of pitch with Melodyne. Things I can't fix are things like emotion and just, the presence of a vocal. I mean, I could try to fix some of those things, but it's like it's so hard with the editing. So things like
if you feel
this little the attack of the vocal. Sometimes you attack these things weird. I want to comp through the best attack of the vocal. Timing wise, I would like to get something that's relatively on time because I don't want to edit. I don't want to have to move things around. I want to take the as much as possible, take the original performance.
If you feel like I do.
So on all those fronts, I think this one, the pitch of this is great.
If you feel.
It has this little bit of like kind of sibilancy on the F.
If you feel.
But we could probably cut around that. Let me listen to the other ones.
If you feel like a.
See, I don't really like the attack of that F right there.
If you feel like I do.
I do like the attack of that.
If you feel like I do.
Okay, so
if you feel like I do.
So one thing is, I don't usually do this, but cutting in between a word, it is possible. So what happens is when you cut in between a word, Studio One will automatically apply crossfades here. So for the most part, it sounds pretty good, but I generally try to avoid cutting in between, like in the middle of a note like this. Usually I want to cut outside of it, but let's just listen to it because I just really don't like the attack on this one.
Feel.
All right, let's get more of this. Oops. Actually, what I wanted to do was, let's go back here. And in this case, this is actually where listening to solo is really helpful, because sometimes that little detail you would miss out on, but as opposed to this. Oops. Okay. So I like that. I think I'm pretty happy with this as my phrase.
If you feel like I do.
There's still a little bit of this kind of really, really super annoying noise. So I'm just going to actually cut it out of the comp. So this is something you can do inside of Studio One. If you want to comp the vocal and you want to remove sections, it's totally okay to come up here and just start deleting sections of the voice. I mean, of the audio. If you know it's not needed. So in this case, I have all this noise here that I know I don't want. So I'm just going to actually delete here. Hit save here, so save our work. Now let's listen to it again.
If you feel.
Nice thing about this is you can start applying fades as well. So you're already kind of editing the audio a little bit as you're comping.
If you feel.
Now that's a little too much.
If you feel.
So I have this bad transition where this introduced a lot of noise and it was starting to introduce it like kind of early here. So we're actually going to try to take all of this right here.
If you feel.
And now what I want to do is, sometimes these things don't line up perfectly. So as much as much as possible, it's good to take more of a phrase, because you'll get like naturally things are aligned in terms of noise and timing and stuff. If you start doing these like intricate cuts, you're going to have to deal with all this stuff as you do the comping.
If you feel.
You can see right here, the timing of this and this are different. Otherwise, I would just take this one.
If you feel.
Let's listen to it with the music. Originally, when I heard it, I didn't like it. But maybe now that I listen to it again, maybe that is the way to go.
If you feel like I do.
Let's listen to this. This one, I think the reason I went for this one, it has that like body of my vocal, and this one is a little more like resonating up.
If
it's not a huge difference. It probably doesn't matter, honestly, which one I take. And this little bit of noise, like with the track, you probably won't be able to hear it.
If you feel.
But let's try to clean up just a tad bit here.
If you feel.
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, so that's like what I mean by going through, narrowing it down all the way down to the words. Again, if you have a great take, just use the take. But in this case, I wanted to really do some intricate comping so you can kind of see what it's like in action. All right, let's move on to the second phrase here.
If you feel like I do.
Again, let's listen to it to remind ourselves.
I'm living for the wonder.
So remember, for my initial pass through, I remember like these three takes are probably the strongest. Let's go through them one more time again. So one thing you can do here is go ahead and just make one range selection. That way you have your double click area set. Now I can click through them like this. Let's start from the top.
I'm living for the wonder.
Okay, yeah, I can tell most of that is not good.
I'm living for the wonder. I'm living for the wonder. I'm living for the wonder. I'm living for the wonder.
So I'd say that last one's probably the best. Let's go in here and listen to this first phrase here.
I'm living for, I'm living, I'm living for, I'm living for the wonder. I'm living for, I'm living for.
So this is a good scenario to have, and I'm glad this happened. Is that when you have like all the takes, there's something wrong with all of them, and you just have to go with the best that you can get out of this. So this will happen, and the thing is, that's okay. Just go ahead and comp it the best that you can, because the thing is, as as you do this more, you'll find out that, like, life is not perfect, comping is not perfect, recording is not perfect, and ideally you would have amazing takes, but sometimes you don't get that. So you comp it the best you can. You try to use what you got. You try to edit it when you can, but sometimes you actually have to go back in and record a new phrase because you're not able to comp something that sounds good. And in this case, it's just this little initial phrase that I think doesn't sound great on any of these takes. But I want to show you how I would approach something like this. So let's go back again and try to listen to the takes, and I'm going to call out what I don't like about them. So that one is really tight, and I'm really kind of clamped up for that, and it affects it's like I'm very much grabbing the vocal. A little bit of that, not as bad as the first one, but similar. Yeah, so this one is a little bit better. This one dipped flat right here, and also doesn't have the right emotion. I would say this is the best one, but it has a pitch issue. So if you listen to it again, and also this is also off pitch too. Both of them are sharp. Okay. Actually, now that I listen to it, maybe this one is actually better. Let's go back. They're close. The thing is, this one is more in pitch or more in tune, so it definitely sounds better. I'm living for I think we're gonna go with this one. In fact, I actually like this whole take, I think, better than this one. I like the back half of this, so let's try this here. We're gonna make our range selection. Yeah, okay, so like I said, I don't think these are the best phrases in the world. In the context of the mix and when I have everything going and I'm able to, edit the vocal, give it a little bit of tuning help, it'll probably sound pretty good. I don't think it's bad enough that I need to re-record it, but it definitely needs some help editing wise. So especially this note right here. So let's listen to this note here. I'm living for wonder. I'm living for wonder. I'm living for. I'm living for. I'm living for wonder. I'm living for. I'm living for. So this one sounds sharp. This one sounds flat. I'm living for. I'm living for. I'm living for. I think this one's the best. It has the best emotion and it's the most in tune. But I just want to show you what it's like to fix a tuning issue while you're doing this process. I find that it's actually good to just go ahead and fix tuning issues while you're comping, because that way you don't have to come back to it later and you're already in the mental state of knowing what needs to be fixed, and you don't have to refresh your memory. So this is another great thing about Studio One. You can kind of interchange comping and melodyne tuning. So the way that I would do this is, like, now that I've identified, okay, this is probably the best I'm going to get out of this phrase. I'm going to just tune it here. So what I do is first of all, always, before you jump into anything inside of Studio One, I like to save. So go to Audio and go Edit with Melodyne. So what Melodyne is going to do is just going to pop up right here, and you'll see the note itself. So this one actually was in pretty good tune compared to the other ones. Just for reference, let's actually just tune one that was a little like a much more out of tune. So let's go here and right click, Audio, Edit with Melodyne. Sometimes for some reason melodyne is scrolled off, so you need to find the note. But okay, let's zoom in to see what's going on here. Okay, so maybe originally I thought it was sharp. Let's listen to it again. But looking at the graph, it actually looks a little sharp, actually. Sharp, and then it dips flat like that. And you know, this natural oscillation is fine. Like sometimes you'll be up here with melodyne, and this, you know, this is not a tuning tutorial, by the way, but I just want to give you some basics. Like you want to get like the middle of this sort of wave of the voice. Sometimes, you know, it'd probably be more ideal if it wasn't so the peak and valley of this kind of like oscillation wasn't so bad. Like really, I want to hit this voice like more like this, so and hit more in the center. So listen to it now. But the more flat it is, the more it sounds fake to me. So see, in that case, I just made that kind of shape a little less prominent, and then I moved the center of it down. I would always use your ears for this, not the guide, but you know, the guide is helpful to kind of approximate where you need to go. And then use your ear to do the final touch. See that one, the end of that did not sound good. Let's go back to the drift here. The reason it didn't sound so good is because this note is pretty much on for the most part, and then right at the end it spikes up. So one thing you can do is maybe cut a little bit here. You know, you get the idea. But ultimately, since I have a good take, I'm not going to use this one anyway. So let's just go back to this one that we had previously, which actually, for the most part, sounded okay. And you can see I'm able to just jump back into the comp even after I've edited a vocal with melodyne. I can still freely just do what I was doing, which is the amazing part about the Studio One comping system. I think it's the most amazing comping system. Okay, so I think it sounds pretty good. I'll probably come back later and maybe tweak it just a little bit, but let's move on to the last word here so we can finish up this tutorial.
I'm living for the wonder. Go read it on the wall.
So overall, I like that. That sounds good to me. Let's listen to the other ones.
Go read it off the wall. 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 Go read it off the wall.
Yeah, so in this case, unlike these other two, which were just a lot of sort of intricate comping, this one, for the most part, sounds pretty good to me. So now let's save and listen to the finished comp of this one line.
If you feel like I do, I'm living for the wonder.
So one thing, listening to it, you can, to me, it feels like this note is a little loud. So let's go ahead and pull it down. This is another thing that's good to do while you're comping, is start like kind of leveling the vocal out. And you're, instead of using automation to it, you're just pulling the clip gain right here. And this saves you actually from doing a lot of automation later because like it's great to just handle this stuff while you're comping because it's right there for you. So I would make a practice of doing your gaining and your tuning while you're comping.
If you feel like I do, I'm living for the wonder. If you feel for the wonder.
Okay, that sounds much better with the gain down a little bit. Okay, listen to the whole thing again.
If you feel like I do, I'm living for the wonder. Go read it on the wall.
Okay, and that is what I would consider to be done for at least this first half of the second verse. Now I have a whole nother half to do, But I'm not going to bore you to death with those details. Basically, what I did in this small section is what you would do to your entire song, and you just go through it. So I really hope that this comping tutorial helped. Let me know in the comments what you think, and subscribe if you haven't already, and hope to see you in future videos.